You'll learn.
Hands.
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Toastmaster of the day. I am going to take my timer out here. I'm going to use myself like you guys over here. Hello, Toastmasters, special guest of the day. Thank you for coming. It's great to have new faces here, so very nice to have you here. I'm going to tell you about 3 things today about myself, fellow Toastmasters. I'm going to tell you 3 things. This is my icebreaker speech. Does that sound like ice? Stand up a little bit. Anyway, the 3 things I want to tell you about are first, myself, my name, okay? Okay, I want to say a little bit about my name and how I got it, and you know what it means and how to pronounce it the right way. Okay, because it's a weird name. Anyway, I'll tell you about my career a little bit. My career as tech master, so you guys know I'm probably technical. I do something in the tech world. I'm going to tell you a little about my family. Last but not least, my family. What I'm so happy about waking up every day today, besides working at a great company and doing things I like to do. So. Okay, first, the year was 1968. It was December 28th of 1968 in a little town way up north called Thief River Falls. If nobody knows where that is, that's, I don't know, less than an hour from Winnipeg. Maybe even an hour or 2 from Winnipeg. Right near the border. My mom grew up in Thief River Falls. Her mother was named Valborg Rugnil Chomi. Okay, her maiden name was Valborg Rugnil Osgard. A little background on my grandmother. My grandmother's father was the Bishop of the Lutheran Church of America. My great-grandfather was the Bishop of the Lutheran Church of America, and he got to meet the King of Norway a number of times. And I thought that was, so I loved hearing stories about that. My grandmother subsequently married, she went to become a teacher in Thief River in the late 20s, and she met a guy who was a lot older than her at that time. She was like 25, and he was 45. He was a lawyer at that time, and he had 3 children. And the 3rd child died in birth. And so he was a widower. He met my grandmother. They ended up getting married and having 3 children. My mom was the middle child. She was born in 1937. Okay, so he was a little bit older. Fast forward to 1968. Grandpa was 81 at the time. My grandmother was about 61. And my mom was like early 30s, I can't remember. And he had at that time, I think about 6 or 7 grandchildren, like 4 boys. And nobody had named any of their kids after, Grandpa. His name was Hans Chomi. And so the day that I was born, Grandma went in to see him in the hospital room and said he was doing too well at that time, 81. And she said Karen had the baby. My mom's name was Karen. There is Karen. And he said, well, that's great. What did they name him? I'll get to that later. Okay, I'll get to the end of that later in my speech. So anyway, my name is Hans because my grandfather went by that name. Okay? First thing I'm going to do when I meet him, and I think I'll hopefully go to heaven, but I'm going to ask him, why did you go by Hans and not Hans? Or Hunts? Or anything other than that A? and I want to hear what he says because I don't know why he did that. He did change his name. I think he liked being a little different because his family migrated here from Norway in the late 1800s. And the name was spelled K-J-O-M-I-E. And then when they came here, that was just too complicated for the, English. So they changed to C-H-O-M-I-E. Okay? So I think maybe he took that and he said, my name is Hans. I would Americanize it maybe a little bit. So anyway, it was Hans. So that's why I'm named after him. Another thing, too, I want to point out that. Why is it, one of my best friends is named Todd Hansen. Okay? It's not Todd Hansen. So it's funny, when I introduce myself to people all the time, I'll say Hans, and they'll call me Hans. And they say, do you care? And I said, no, I don't care. I don't mind. But they never call me Hans. That's okay. There was a time in my life where I went a few years and I said Hans to people. And they would never call me Hans. So, you know what I mean? This is very strange. I want to talk about my career. I consider myself, as Jeff knows, a geek during the week and a freak on the weekends. Why is that, you may ask? Well, as you can see, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I hope you guys, you knew me a little bit already by just what I've talked about here. But I've been a DJ, mobile DJ, since 1993. I have a broadcasting degree. I was in radio for a while. My dad was in radio. My dad was a very popular announcer in the Twin Cities in the 60s. Unfortunately, he passed away in 1988 from an aneurysm, brain aneurysm. It's the worst kind you can get. So after he passed away, I tried to get in the Navy. I couldn't get in the Navy because I have a cataract, strangely enough. You know, I would have a cataract. So people with cataracts cannot get in the services. So it's FYI if you weren't aware of that. It's strange. So anyway, I thought, well, I'm going broadcasting. So I got a broadcasting degree. I got a job at CCO Radio where my dad had worked for a long time. And I was doing some fun things, making commercials, doing spots, and voiceover work and stuff. But then I was like, the network that I was working for through CCO, and subsequently CBS had bought CCO at that time. And I went to KFGO Radio where the program director had moved. And I was doing ad, ratings, commercials, and doing some producing things, and it wasn't really working out. But I really started learning about computers and how much I loved working with computers, and learning about some Excel and Word documents and so on and so forth, and I really enjoyed that. That basically led me down the path of going into IT and working in IT and understanding what it takes to be in IT. But I also had that kind of flair for wanting to do broadcasting, so that's when I became a mobile DJ. I probably DJed about anywhere from 350 to 450 weddings around the Twin Cities and Wisconsin and the Dakotas and everywhere. So it gives me a chance to kind of unleash that, you know, my craziness, if you will. And it's a fun thing to do. I don't do it crazy much anymore. And anyway, so I had done that for quite a while, and I enjoy doing that. And I'm also here now. I'm back. I was in Toastmasters in the late 90s, but I'm here again, and I'm very happy to be here. And last but not least, my family. I met my wife, Becky, in 1994. In September, we'll be celebrating our 15th anniversary. We've got a beautiful daughter, 10-year-old. She'll be 10 years old February 8th, and Kelsey. And my son is Alex. He just lost his tooth yesterday, so he went to the tooth fairy was in town last night. And so I love my family to death. I would have shown you pictures, but I just kind of, I just wanted to wing it today a little bit. Last but not least, back to my name. As my grandmother went into that hospital room, my grandpa was, he died 3 days after I was born. So it was kind of neat that he had an opportunity to learn this. Grandma says, "Guess what, Hans? Guess what they're going to name Karen's little boy?" He says, "What?" And she says, "Hans." And he said, "Poor kid."